Hello, my name is Francis Pinder, and you are watching or listening perhaps to the Salesforce Posse podcast, where I speak to Salesforce industry influencers so we can gain a better understanding of how to excel in a career path from a Salesforce admin or developer to an architect. And in this conversation, I'm going to be talking with Luca Benini, who is COO and co-founder of Native Video, a Salesforce AppExchange app that brings video and audio recording directly into Salesforce. Now, Luca has been in the Salesforce ecosystem for many years, but 4 years ago, he took the plunge and started Native Video. So I wanted to pick his brains on what it takes to build an AppExchange app on the platform, and any tips and tricks he might have that for anyone who wants to start out building an app in AppExchange. So if you're interested in building apps on AppExchange, want to know any marketing tips or the process behind building an app, then I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this conversation with Luca. So without further ado, let's go. Hello, Luca Benini. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, hello, Francis. Hello, all the listeners, and thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. You are Mr. AppExchange in my view, and we're going to dive in a bit about AppExchange and apps and things like that and the ecosystem. But what I kind of wanted to get about is how did you start in the Salesforce ecosystem? How did you kind of get into the world of AppExchange apps?
Well, interestingly, it was I guess Salesforce was always part of my career. If you work in technology, you either refer to or aspire to be like Salesforce or lead Salesforce, or you work for them. And in my career, I had the opportunity to work for Salesforce. It was a long time ago, more than 10 years ago,
right.
When the first marketing cloud was formed. It was actually formed out of a couple of companies that were acquired by Salesforce back in 2011. And one was called Buddy Media, and I was running the Buddy Media team in Europe way back when. And through the acquisition, then I got to work for the mothership, and there was my view from inside. And then I left. I went on to have another couple of very lucky, actually, and very good, solid startup adventures. And now I'm running my own, and it was just fitting for me to go back to the ecosystem at the core of it and create a solution on the AppExchange and for the Salesforce ecosystem for Salesforce users.
Okay, cool. So what kind of attracted you? Why did you decide, hey, look, I'm going to build an AppExchange app? What was the spark that made you do it?
Well, I think throughout my career and connecting with a lot of users and using it myself, using Salesforce myself, it's obvious that Salesforce is a bidimensional solution, meaning that it's predominantly made of text. And if it's not text, if you're adventurous, you'll have drop-down menus. So in that sense, the world has been evolving a lot more towards the content creation centered around different ways of creating and sharing information. Specifically, obviously, we're called Native Video, and focus was on video, but also audio represents a massive opportunity to create content, and one actually that we're already leveraging in our world, in our kind of real life, and in our professional life through Salesforce. That was a gap that we identified. So I think it's a combination of identifying the gap, to answer your specific question about why the AppExchange, identified the gap, identified a unique audience which actually gives you a good focused approach, which is very important word in every startup venture. Having the audience defined and a very good focused approach. And then the third element was opportunity. Salesforce prepares that opportunity very well for you. The opportunity also for us came by the fact that me and my co-founder Nick, have expertise centered in Salesforce technology and around a Salesforce ecosystem. So we brought all of these elements together, and it was almost natural for us to focus our attention to and develop for the AppExchange and for the Salesforce ecosystem.
Okay, cool. So I think there's various different types of apps, I suppose. You've got these Salesforce native apps. Then you've got kind of like the kind of connector apps that connect to services that are off on the web. Kind of your app specific, I'm assuming, is a kind of a hybrid of the two. It's kind of a native, but then offloads video off for processing. Is that how it works?
So there are a few different approaches to creating for the AppExchange. You actually mentioned something that is very real. There are a lot of companies that have their presence on the AppExchange, but their presence is predominantly focused on a connector app, as it's called, meaning they have a fully fully built solution that you can use in its entirety outside of the Salesforce ecosystem. But thanks to a connector app, you can actually bring it into your Salesforce experience and do varying degrees of integration with your processes directly in Salesforce. Be that because it's feeding data back to Salesforce, or maybe because it's enabling you to do a couple of steps within your Salesforce process, but then the whole processing and the whole information, whatever added value the solution brings is actually happening outside of Salesforce. And that's one type of solution that we are not. Our approach is native in the sense that we built our solution to operate only from within the platform. So we don't manage logins. We effectively don't have a landing page for our product outside of your Salesforce org, right? So in order to use our solution, the premise is that you are a Salesforce customer, and you would only be able to benefit and activate our solution from within your Salesforce. What you mentioned about the specificity of where we store and stream files from actually has to do with a bit of a limitation, if you will, of Salesforce in dealing with very large size data, both from a cost and handling perspective. Salesforce is not designed as a data storage or video streaming platform. And that's why we manage that with a secure connection through AWS. So all the functionalities, all the metadata are native, and they're built on the Salesforce platform, but the individual files of the video are stored and streamed through an external provider, in this case AWS.
And I think that's you're kind of bringing the two the benefits you get from AWS as well as Salesforce, but you're kind of the code base, or the majority of that config is within the cloud native Salesforce app. And also I kind of look at so you've got these kind of these very cloud native apps that are completely 100% on the platform. You've got the connected apps. You've got your app, which is this kind of semi-hybrid, but not really. It's just kind of the offloading part. And then you've got accelerator apps, which I think are the ones where, it's a kind of a baseline of functionality that you really have to customize to kind of get going, which is kind of the other style, which I kind of think of it's almost like the industry clouds on Salesforce almost. They've got a base set of functionality, kind of accelerates you so far, and then you can kind of build on top of that as well.
That's exactly right. And in that sense, we have a similar approach in relation to a part of what we do with our customers, because our solution is built as a platform, and the native video platform that you find on the AppExchange is effectively designed to unlock video and audio capabilities. So you can place a record button and a player across your processes, and then we have what are called extension apps, which serve the purpose of adapting through a set of configurations, adapting the platform to work in a specific data model. So there's one for the Sales Cloud, where you have your contacts, your opportunities, and your accounts, and that's where you bring to life automatically, basically out of the box. The premise is you have the platform that enables video and audio, and then through these configurations, you're actually bringing to life the video player in a contact, in the video recorder, so you can create video messages. You're bringing to life in Service Cloud a record button, part of a field service process. Yes.
Okay, so is that driven by? So it's driven by the users configuring that. So is it kind of like an add-on product or service that you can kind of have a bolt-on basically to the core AppExchange app that you've built?
It's the second one that you said. So it's effectively helping the configuration so that you don't have to do it.
Got
right?
You, right. So does this make it more flexible to support the other functionality within Salesforce, of different products and business services? Got you. Okay.
That's exactly right.
So if I was thinking of creating an AppExchange app, what's the kind of high level process that you have to kind of go through to actually create an app?
It's relatively straightforward. Salesforce make it very structured in their approach, and they're very welcoming. When you fill in the form, as most things starts with Salesforce, you would fill in the form, and through that, kicks in a process whereby someone will get in touch, explain to you what you have to go through, which is in predominantly 3 steps, if you want. One is a business assessment. The first thing that Salesforce will want to understand is what is the added value from a business perspective that your solution brings to the ecosystem. And that will be the first assessment that they do. And once you're validated from a business plan perspective, then they will go into a bit more of a obviously technical assessment, where you would have to go through a number of steps to submitting your code and sharing with the Salesforce experts what you're built and how you built it, so they can validate that it doesn't break Salesforce, as well as it is designed in a secure, in a safe way, because obviously I think the guiding principles there are probably, as you would expect from someone like Salesforce. The first is trust. So there's a massive emphasis on keeping it safe and making sure that whatever hits the AppExchange is pre-approved from a security perspective by Salesforce. The second important aspect is a user experience. They would want to ensure that whatever is happening through your solution that is in use by Salesforce user reflects the high standard of usability and interoperability that Salesforce expects. So they would want to see multiple browsers, multiple devices, all of that will be checked. And that's a very thorough process. There's actually a cost associated. It's a small cost in to memory is less than $30,000 to complete this assessment. And out of that, typically a few recommendations will come back to the tech team. They will be asked to review certain points and reassure in certain areas. And then out of that, hopefully, if everything checks out, you get the approval, and that's when you hit the AppExchange. To go on the AppExchange, and this will be kind of the third element to take into consideration. You will need a package, so obviously the solution ready, but also the media and the story, the positioning, to create your window through which your prospective customers can go in and check and understand a bit more about you. So you have screenshots available, you have question and answers, you may add
your
a video
landing
with a demo. Exactly, all of that.
Yeah, cool. So
and your pricing.
Yeah. So on the pricing side, how do you actually make money out of the apps? Because obviously there's a couple of different, because it could even be a free app, right, on AppExchange. But what are the kind of various different types of app, or monetary wise, and what are the benefits for each in your opinion?
So let me tell you about our approach. Our approach is subscription based, so it reflects the Salesforce approach. It's on a per user basis, and the way it works is the best parallel that I use when I explain what the AppExchange is to a friend who doesn't know what Salesforce is and what the AppExchange is to think about the App Store. So on your phone, there's a number of additional features and functionalities that are provided by third parties that are invited, securely checked, but then invited to sell their solution directly to you through the marketplace. The approach of the AppExchange is exactly the same, and also the monetization opportunity is exactly the same, because then through the AppExchange, you will find customers with which you will engage directly. So the subscription that they sign up will be directly with you. It's somehow sanctioned by Salesforce in the background. Obviously, they've given their approval to operate within their ecosystem, but it's a direct relationship that you have with your customers. So you take care of them. You may or may not perform some integration services for them, as well as anything else that is needed for them to be up and running. You will send them an invoice and they will pay. So that's our approach. Some other companies have the ability to pay directly from the AppExchange. So there's a kind of a pay button there and use a credit card. And that's even more similar to an app store approach. Interestingly, we also have a free app. And a free app is typically designed, let me tell you why we designed it and why we have it on the AppExchanges. And that's because you want, from a marketing perspective, from a go-to-market perspective, you want to reach as many prospects as possible. And also the ones that are just exploring the space. They're just, testing a few things out. They're thinking about something that might do in the future. You want to be there with them and give them something that is good enough that they can grab and completely self-service install and understand and start to play with, so that you start to build a relationship starting with your product, which is probably the best way to start. If you think about the wide array that you have to reach out to customers and prospects, the best possible way is them using your product to start with. And
so would you call this kind of model like a freemium model? Like you're starting free and they're going to their premium model, or is it? Yeah, okay, got it.
That's exactly right. And to give you a sense of from our perspective, our free video solution includes up to 100 videos, and they can be only as long as 30 seconds. And that's because in that particular case, the videos are stored in Salesforce, so they face head on the limitation of large file data and too many of them becoming costly. So that's why we limit that to, it's good enough that you start to get a sense, what would this page layout be? What would this process be if I have a record button here and if I have a player here? And that's what, we want really there. And I guess that's predominantly the approach regarding free across the board, because that's, people getting familiar with your solution, and when they're ready to commit, when they need to scale, when their organization, their process becomes the one and it's fully designed and it's ready for production, then you are the partner that they learned with, and you are the solution that they built the rest of the process around. So you'll be the one that they select and use.
Yeah. So I think, so your kind of approach to building directly on Salesforce, I think there's a kind of another way of doing it, I suppose, is the same kind of model on building a native iOS app versus a native Android app. You're building two separate apps. So are you just focused on Salesforce specifically, or are you looking to go to like Dynamics, HubSpot, and the others? And does that mean that you'd create native apps for those, or you'd create an app that kind of could work with all three?
So it's a very good question, and one actually that we typically get asked by investors because they want to understand the potential, right? And how big are we thinking? Our answer is always, for now, we're focused on Salesforce. We've built on Salesforce, and there's a massive opportunity, completely untapped, in unlocking video and audio across all organizations, all orgs, effectively across the globe. Our approach, though, lends itself to be then replicated across multiple platforms. The best example that I can use here is Own Backup. Own Backup is a massively successful story of a solution built for Salesforce and within Salesforce, and only and solely Salesforce focused for the majority of its life. And then when it hit a certain level, and with certain investors backing it, it had reached almost like a ceiling, and it needed to then take the expertise that it was able to create with the playbook of, how do you win being native to an ecosystem, to a platform, and take that playbook and the blueprint that comes with it to other platforms. And my understanding is that they're now focusing also on additional, like Dynamics for Microsoft and other solution, providing the same
exact value proposition. You've got the money then to do it as well,
of being native.
So you can do it. It's you got to that point.
Exactly.
And you've learned all the best practices and how not to do it as well by that time.
Precisely.
Cool. So so just ignoring the kind of the app ecosystem almost a little bit, if I wanted to create an app, how would I validate that it's worth creating? Like, if I had an idea about, this would be a good idea for an app, how would I know if it would be successful? Is there any kind of tips you could give for that?
Well, I think our experience and common sense suggests that testing is the only way, and not going anecdotal. In our experience, we had a hunch, and that actually led to the first prototype. The first prototype was effectively just the platform, and the platform immediately started gaining some traction. And as part of it, we also noticed, and everything that we built from that point on was based on our customer feedback. So whatever they wanted, whatever they said, this would be interesting and relevant, we built. So I guess it's testing, really.
Yeah, it's testing with the market and seeing if people want it, I suppose, which is key. So, Luca, I know that you've got this new product coming out. Is it this year, 2023? And it was quite interesting because when I kind of first saw you, your video talk, it's kind of like, you're uploading video. It's about just video consumption. Whereas now you're kind of looking beyond that and around, was it customer retention or understanding more about your employees? And I just wanted to see if, and is that your new product that's coming out this year? I can't quite remember.
Yes. So it's actually customer insights, and it's a product that we're very excited about. And as you were rightly saying, it actually builds on our expertise in building video solution that operates directly from within Salesforce, and our experiments with AI, which is quickly accelerating, and it's providing a fantastic set of features and tools that are just amazing, that are going to revolutionize a lot of areas. In our particular case, we've built. We were invited by Salesforce to brainstorm with a very large FMCG client, and the problem they were facing is related to their market research. They felt their market research was a bit stuck in the past, and they felt there must be a better way to get consumer insights that doesn't go and ask them on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate this feature, and how would you rate this additional thing, and how would you define this, and how would you, and they said, people get quickly fatigued about this type of questionnaires, and they just quickly go through it, they unlock the reward, and off they go. And the insights they gather from that are not very good. So how can we change that? Well, we've developed this solution, which is coming to the AppExchange, to an AppExchange near you very soon, that is centered around almost like an interactive market research piece, where you receive a link, you click on the link, and you land on the page. And yes, you guessed it, that link was sent through likely Marketing Cloud or Pardot, and you land on a page that is built on a digital experience, on a community, where your profile is there. So you log in and you're part of the community. And as part of it, you're requested to take a couple of insights investigation, surveys, if you will. And as you interact with this system, you're shown images or videos of products. Maybe something is described to you, or just an image of a product, a new food concept in the case of this particular client. And what you're asked to do is to just share your reaction. What do you think about this product? And then a couple more questions are asked during this interaction, which is completely asynchronous, right? So you're clicking next, and then you're hearing a voice saying, okay, now that you had 30 seconds to look at it, what would be your perspective on relation to this product and its use in this particular case? And you say what you want to say. Now we capture all of that information and we process it, but that's the behind the scene that is very fascinating, because behind the scene we are using Einstein AI to extract sentiment and insights from what people say. We're using a system that is capable of reading the facial expression and the attitude of the person that is responding, making sure that whatever they say, it's actually matching their emotions that are inferred from what we see. We're also using this kind of AI processed information to make sure that they actually correspond to the profile, age, and gender that they provided. That's another problem. Around 10% of all profiles answering a survey are the default profile. So they're all born and the 1st of January, whatever date, the default date and the default gender. And maybe they're just because they want to unlock their reward and they want to get done with it. So all of these things are now possible, and the insights that you get on the other side are faster. They are a lot more accurate because you're eliminating all the biases and you're getting a true sense. And finally, you have, I think, truly an opportunity to talk to real people rather than professional survey takers. So this is really working very well, and it's a way of using all our expertise in building natively within the platform, leveraging all the aspects of the platform, bringing it all together and creating a lot of value for those customers that are using the Salesforce baseline.
And I think that's key, isn't it, to creating apps? It's finding
that distinct problem that customers and people are having and using the functionality and the technology of the platform to deliver a solution for them. And that is the basis of the app. And if you get it right, you can make money from it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. We have another exciting product. I just want to quickly tell you about it, just because it's it's at a different end of the spectrum, but this is also addressing, just reminded, because you just said, I remember the other day asking a friend, what's the biggest problem that Salesforce users have? And the answer is that they don't like to type. They don't like to provide their updates in the opportunity in the case. Like, you can design the best, laid out process, all the things right and, fantastic. But if people don't actually go in and say, I've just talked to Francis and we've agreed on this and this, and, this is the next step, that's, not good. So to respond to that, we have a quick and dirty solution that we are quite excited about, which is an audio notes solution. We call it Alfred, the Salesforce PA, because it's a personal assistant. It almost works like Siri. And, you tap it, you say what the debrief is from my conversation with Francis, and you highlight the 5 things, from your notes. And all of a sudden, all of that is transcribed. It's interpreted by AI. Action items are automatically extracted and connected with the next steps. It might be creating tasks for you directly in Salesforce. And all of a sudden, with 30 seconds, let me tell you what happened in this meeting, let me tell you what happened in this call, you've brought to life a whole new level of data structured thanks to the AI directly in your Salesforce, which is quite exciting as well.
It's making it frictionless for the users and allowing you to get the information into Salesforce, which is, brilliant.
Exactly.
Can I have a copy? Oh, yeah. Cool. So I did want to talk to you because you participated in some of the demo jams. And I think like AppExchange demo jams are a great way to kind of understand the art of the possible, I suppose, in the AppExchange world, and all these different apps and what you can do basically in the platform. But why do you like getting involved with them? Is probably my question, and attending them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the question. And if you're actually watching this podcast rather than just listening to it, you will see that I'm holding one of the trophies that we actually won during a recent demo jam. So demo jam, I think, they've always been some of the highlights for me going to Salesforce events. I've always enjoyed the format, which is, you don't need to spend too much time listening to someone blabbing and, kind of pitching the, hell out of it. Because it's 3 minutes, and in 3 minutes they either bring something to life that is relevant or they don't, and you can move on very quickly. So I always felt it was very interesting and compelling, and for us, participating is a way to very quick. Well, it also focuses you, right? Because you only have 3 minutes to convey your value proposition and show it in action. So you have to be specific and focused. I think the message travels very well through a demo jam because in our ecosystem, people like to see it. People like to play with
live
it.
Demo.
They want to imagine it in their world, and they love a live demo. They hate PowerPoint, love live demos. Don't tell me or don't put it on a paper, PowerPoint, what you can do. Just show me. And this is where the demo jam really delivers value. And then from a pure marketing perspective, its reach is very good typically because, again, people like me like to watch it. It creates a good piece of content that has a very long shelf life. So you can reuse whatever you're creating in a demo jam. You know that you're going to put it in your social, you're going to put it on your website. Even if you don't
3 minutes, it's consumable.
you have this piece of content Exactly. So it goes in your next campaign, in a newsletter. I mean, it's really, really multifaceted, from a pure, kind of practical perspective as well.
Cool. Okay, is there anything else that you want to say on the podcast before we wrap up? Or ask the final couple of questions?
Well, interestingly, we're having this conversation in the wake of a bit of a shakeup to the Salesforce ecosystem.
Yeah.
With the announcement not long ago of 10% of Salesforce kind of being let go, and a bit of a reorganization then happening across the whole spectrum of Salesforce. And I think on the one hand, I'm saddened, and we've lost some of the key contacts that we had across the organization. I am actually not too. Let me rephrase that. I don't believe that they will have a hard time relocating and finding a new job, because the expertise and the exposure that you get when you work from within a machine like Salesforce is invaluable to the market, and the ecosystem and the industry is still working and is still growing very fast. So no doubt they will be immediately re-employed and very happy with a new gig. But at the same time, I think it's an important signal that talks about rationalization and kind of sets the scene to me for 2023. One of the mantras from Salesforce is do more with less. So I think if I look at it from our perspective and in the context of our conversation, I would say my message is for people like us creating solutions that need to add value. You need to take that into consideration. Be pragmatic in your approach and create solutions that are need to have, and that really focus on doing more with less, helping customers be more efficient, be more effective with their Salesforce and through their Salesforce operations. I don't believe that people will stop investing in technology, especially in Salesforce technology, but they will have a bit more of a pragmatic eye to what and how they invest their money and what they actually bring into their org and for their users. And I think, again, we're well placed from our perspective, at least. I believe we're well placed to fulfill that promise and thrive in 2023.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I've got two final questions for you. The first question, if you have one, is do you have a top audiobook that you listen to? Because I know you listen to a lot of audiobooks like I do.
Yes, well, I have a couple of recommendations that I always bring up when this question, or when we are in the conversation of audiobooks. One is because I listen to audiobooks when I run, typically.
Right, yeah.
When I find the time to run. One will be Born to Run. That was one of the first audiobooks that I've ever listened to, and it's a good story. It's a very nice, enjoyable running book. And the other one, if you like fiction, I believe when I read Shantaram, it was with me for many of my runs. It's a massive book, so in proportion, I think it's as big as 3 or 4 audiobooks from a length perspective. But when it's over, you want to start it again. And as a matter of fact, I listened to it twice.
I'll have to get a copy of that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of fiction as well. So yeah, I've got a lot. Yeah, I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I'm dropping the kids off and picking them up from nursery and things like that. I think probably my top one, if I was going to say mine at the moment, would be if you're into DevOps, take a listen to the Phoenix Project, which is essentially a storybook on this organization. Yeah, an organization that's in total chaos. And they bring in kind of agile and DevOps processes into it. But it is a storybook, and it is and also you learn about DevOps through it. And it's It's a great book, as well as an audiobook as well, which is fab. And also, my final question that I ask everybody is, if you could wind back the clock to some point in time, and you could give some advice to yourself, what time would it be that you'd wind the clock back to, and what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, interesting. I'll give you a two-part answer if I can. One is I would go back to my university years and tell myself to be a bit more focused on my study and party a little less because you don't get much out of it. And so that would be one. And I believe, I don't know, the second one, I would probably go back to the beginning of my career a bit and recommend to myself that I start earlier in sales. I remember that I was a bit reluctant at first. My transition to sales was interesting. I was employed to work in the marketing team. I started working in market insights, providing solutions and supporting sales that were going out to sell, and I would then started going out with them, and then I started taking over the conversation with customers, and then that's how I ended up finally being a sales person myself. I remember being reluctant, both psychologically and from a timing perspective. I delayed that, and that was a mistake probably that I wouldn't do again. I believe acquiring sales skills and being a good salesperson is good across the board. It helps in life, and it definitely helps in a professional career at any level and in any job.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the Salesforce Posse podcast. I hope you've had fun. I know I have, and learned a load. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Francis, and see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. Thanks. Thanks for watching or listening to the Salesforce Posse podcast. Now, please, if you like or what you see or hear, then please rate this podcast in your podcast player, as it tells me that there are people out there that actually are listening to this and that it's useful to them. Also, it helps the podcast algorithms to kind of elevate the podcast in the different podcast directories, which will be really helpful for me as well. And finally, if you do have a question that you want to ask on the podcast, then head to salesforceposse.com/message and maybe you'll appear in the next podcast. But apart from that, thanks for listening, and until next time, ta-ta.